it's amazing when we talk about job creation. And your job is a difficult one because everyone attacks jobs going overseas. Your job is to get other countries to accept U.S. exports, but also you can't have onerous regulations and trade barriers here at home. And so as it relates to trade and jobs, where do we stand? Are we doing better? Is it worse? Where do we stand when it comes to jobs in this economy? And then, of course, what's happening overseas?
I could not, I think, be more privileged to have a portfolio to support the president's #1 initiative, and that's how we create jobs that too many Americans are looking for right now. And the interesting thing about our portfolio is we are at a period of time with the type of unemployment numbers that you referenced and the anxiety among the American public that for many people, our biggest challenge, it's counterintuitive to go to them and say, one way that we can find more jobs is to engage more in global trade, because they see trade as a synonym for cheaper products here, but jobs going elsewhere. And the reality is that we are in a period of time now, because our market in the United States, it's so open. Our barriers to entry are pretty low. So most of the world freely sells into the United States. Well, we're in a period of time now, particularly as China, India, and most of Africa and Latin America are beginning to grow and attack poverty and create a middle class. One way we can create jobs here is sell more of what we make into these emerging dynamic economies, and that's the work that we're engaged in.
Are we seeing jobs returning to the U.S., or are we seeing companies still export jobs overseas?
Well, unfortunately, the answer to both may be yes. The reality of an expanding global marketplace, let me put this in some context for our viewers. We can't ignore the reality that 95% of the world's potential consumers now live somewhere other than the United States. And depending on what you make, notwithstanding emotion or rhetoric or patriotism, for some businesses it makes more sense to make a product closer to where the customers are. But for many businesses, they have found, because of the absence of democracy or maybe the rule of law or the respect for law, rather than risk moving somewhere offshore and losing your work product, some of those businesses are beginning to realize, you know what, given the dynamics of our economy, but given the openness of our manufacturing system, the respect for law, many of them have decided to bring some of those jobs back. But the opportunity for us as a country is, just imagine if you just focus on Africa, Asia, and India. Roland, you're looking at a universe potentially of 1.5 billion new middle-class consumers. And we have the opportunity to sell into that market if we can help American businesses who previously haven't thought about exporting, export. We want to try to focus on those businesses that'll grow jobs here and then ship the products elsewhere.
I had you at the Tom Joyner Morning Show, and we were talking about those opportunities, especially for the small, mid-sized, and emerging black-owned businesses. What have you seen in terms of opportunities for companies trying to do business in Africa, in Asia?
Well, it's interesting you say that, because one of the better success stories we have is this great company in Detroit owned by an African-American, a young Hispanic guy, and an Anglo, and they looked at the reality that, as they said, look, we can't go anywhere. We're stuck in Detroit, but we got this captive workforce, and they created this concept that I love that they call onshoring jobs. And so they've gone to the same companies that have said, we're going to send our technology to India, and said, you know what, we got some of the best tech workers here. If we can do it in Detroit for the same price you do it, will you let us do it here? Their biggest growth is now in Latin America and in Canada, and they're doing it right there in Detroit. Let me do one practical thing, because I know you don't have the whole hour to talk about trade. Any of your listeners that want to learn in more detail about how we can help you go global, I want you to visit our website at either ustr.gov or export.gov. Because for small businesses, which are 95% of ours, the biggest concern is still access to capital and will I get paid? The biggest fear for many small businesses, I know if I sell to Roland, I can fire him if I have to. But if I'm selling to somebody halfway around the world, will I get paid? We can help them understand how, if they do find a customer, which we can help them do, through the Department of Commerce, the Export-Import Bank exists solely to help them finance that purchase and put them at ease about the fact that they're going to get paid.
All right, Ambassador Kirk, welcome to the show anytime.
All right, my brother.
All right, thanks.